Thanks so much for being here as really the entry point to our official celebration of the Reusable Packaging Association turning 25 years this year. We were established as a coalition back in 1999. There was a lot of interest at the US EPA about rising solid waste numbers and ways to curtail solid waste generation, even back 2.5 decades ago. And there was some activity in the marketplace that was taking shape, particularly with Walmart interested in reusable packaging and taking models learned from Europe to apply to their growth of supercenters. And that energy created the need to come together as an industry, at that time a coalition that has evolved into a full-fledged nonprofit trade association. My name is Tim Davis with the Reusable Packaging Association, and I'm pleased to be joined by a set of industry experts. In building this panel, we wanted to tap into the veterans that have been with our industry and the association for quite some time now. So we may be dating ourselves in many cases, but that's a good thing. Sure. Because in 1999, the conversation about reusable packaging was very different than it is today. And being able to tap into that insight and wisdom that's gained over time is so important on how we can apply for the future of this industry and the application of reusable packaging. So we're real pleased to reflect on 25 years of RPA's existence and talk about some stories of the past and ultimately where we think the future is going for our industry and the use of reusable packaging in the marketplace. I'd like to have individual members of our panel to introduce themselves. And Kevin, perhaps would you like to start?
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Kevin Mazzula. I'm the CEO of RM2. We kind of pioneered the smart pallet market, and I'm just pleased to be with you today.
Thanks. I'm Samantha Getz with Orbis Corporation. I'm very excited to be here and talk about what we've seen in the past and where we're going in the future.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ben Stoller with Plasgad Corporation. I've been in this business since early 2000s as an investor. We pioneered the plastic pallet pooling business, and the rest of that are a lot of gray hairs in my head.
My name is Dan Aarons. I am with CHEP, Brambles. It's a Brambles company, representative. Everybody knows the blue pallets. We've got IBCs as well as our CHEP Automotive Group.
Fantastic. And it is of note that the RPA's leadership team is here, with Kevin serving as our chairman of the board, Samantha, our vice chair, and our chairperson-elect in January, taking the gavel from Kevin, and Ben Stoller is our immediate past chair. So had served out a 2-year term on our leadership team. And Dan and Chep and your team has always been involved helping the association. And Brandon DeMedio, who you're sitting in, is our secretary treasurer. So again, the talent and the experience here is second to none, not just in the industry, but the association as well. I want to start off and talk a little bit about our first memories of getting into this industry. Mine really date throughout of being in chicken farms and banana fields and also meat processing plants, looking at designs of reusable plastic containers in the most rigorous environments. I can remember spending days on end in a cooler of cooling strawberries at 33 degrees temperature and having to wait there for temperature monitors and probes to be able to collect data. So in many cases, it's a rigorous in-the-field marketplace in terms of development, and I'll take those memories and real-world applications with me throughout our work here at RPA. But Kevin, is there a particular moment when you got into the industry that left an impression on you?
Well, 25 years is a long time. Maybe I'll paint a little picture of what things were like in the year 2000, because I was definitely around there. Everybody remembers Y2K. That was going on. Apple stock was at like 22 cents at the time. There was, the president of Russia was Boris Yeltsin, and he gave his job to some young punk called Putin at the end of the year. What else was happening? The stock market hit 10,000. We used Nokia phones. It was a different era. So I also have my memories are also going into the cold storage areas and putting on the coats, and you think you're going to be warm enough, but you never are.
No, not for hours on end as well. But certainly thinking about the current events of 2000 and what was taking place then. It's quite an amazing memory to think through. Samantha, with your time at Orbis, what do you remember about the forming industry back in 2000?
Yeah, one of the things that comes to mind actually is related to the RPA. I was very involved early on with the first packaging life cycle assessment for RPCs. And it's so interesting to think 20 plus years later, how ahead of the curve the RPA was at that point. We were thinking even at that point about life cycle assessments, and now today it's really the way the world works. So it's pretty exciting to be that far in advance.
The models have changed over time, right?
Definitely.
But the principles are the same in
Yep.
terms of what life cycle assessments are striving to achieve.
Yep.
Ben, how about you? You've got a few good stories, I'm sure.
I have a lot of good stories. I think the biggest story we had is when we first got the plastic pallet pooling model. And I was on a Wall Street investment banker, and we looked at it, we did the comparisons, we looked at the migration from wood to plastic and such. And actually, I wrote the very first check for IGPS. So going out and launching it, we always had somebody who actually goes out and helps run the business. So I looked around on New York on Park Avenue, all my coworkers took a step backwards and left me up in front. So I had the opportunity to go to Orlando. We built the business. I visited every customer, every distribution channel, NWPCA, and everybody's like, you have to be part of the RPA. And that's why I met Tim in 2006, 7 or such, but he was an Indiana Hoosier, so we were we became simpatico very quick. And then moving from there and watching the growth of the industry and then buying our 10 millionth plastic pallet was incredible. Just the experience you can't get. And those operational days of being called in the middle of the night, pallet fell out of the rack, things like that. And just buying and working this space has been great, making friends for life.
Absolutely, those early hour calls of something that needs to be looked at for sure. And Dan, you probably have a few of these as well, right?
Yeah, so I spent most of the beginning of my career in sales, so I definitely understand those calls. That was, yes, a lot of those. I wasn't gray, but honestly, my earliest memory was a little bit after 1999, just a little bit. I graduated college and this company recruited me, and I joined a company called CHEP. And I went to the RPCC. It was suggested I look at it to figure out what the heck I got myself into. And it was like eye-opening. That was like, okay, one, I shouldn't do things in a bonfire. But two, I really, the idea of packaging and the reusability of packaging across the supply chain really opened my eyes to different things that could happen within the supply chain. It really led me to this point in my career.
I think that's great because like back in 1999, CHEP was like 50 years young, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Been doing this for 50 years. Orbis was like a 5-year-old kid. Rick LeBlanc was a 5-year-old kid writing stories. But it was a great model and something for everyone else to emulate because by using a reusable product, you're able to get a better product. And you have to figure out a lot of other things, but you can give a better product for less cost. Mm-hmm. You have to figure out a lot of things, but it's the model's there. You guys have showed the world how it works, and so I mean I think a lot of people in the industry look at that as saying, how do we continue to do that? How do we continue to provide a better product for less cost and the difference between now and back then perhaps is that there's a bit more focus on sustainability and saying it's not just that we need to do that, but we need to protect the assets that are in the world and not use as much and to save more for the future. So big hats off to CHEP and the pioneers in the reusable field.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the pioneers word is a good example. There are a few, especially up here as well, that have really paved the way for where we are today in reuse. Just looking at the past once more time, we talked about some personal experiences. What about industry events or activities? I mentioned back in '99 when Walmart supercenters were starting to look at fresh fruits and vegetables and how they're going to be packaged. That was a big rallying cry for reuse in the retail space, particularly groceries. We know the automotive industry has been long-standing users of reusable packaging for their supply chain and operations. But open up to the group here, is there any an event that you can remember that was perhaps a game changer or something that occurred that really helped propel the thinking of reusable packaging in terms of its adoptions in the marketplace?
I'll jump in quickly. So for me, I've been in supply chain for many years, but it's only after COVID when you started to hear the term supply chain, all of a sudden all the pundits on TV are saying supply chain. I think that was a huge event, I mean, people talked about, can we make sure that the goods are transported on, clean, hygienic products, or we make sure that our product can get to market on time. But that whole event just brought supply chain to the forefront, I think, for a lot of people in the world.
Do we owe that because of the shortage on toilet paper that took place? was that alone a mark that we can look back and saying, boy, that really propelled the discussion about supply chains?
I think the bigger piece was the chain of custody. So chain of custody became very important. Understanding, they always say from seed to counter, but this was from, chicken plant, processing plant to counter. And understanding, being able to look at that chain of custody and go back and step it and follow that product all the ways down was very important. And then from the containers, the reusables, the collapsibles, and you can actually sanitize them and things along those factors were very important.
And it's only going to continue to expand, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think another great example, you mentioned automotive, and there was that converted decades ago. But what we're seeing today is like a reconversion to different packaging to support a big trend in innovation for the automakers, EV and BEV. So that's been exciting to see as well. A market that converted pretty much completely, and now looking again at new innovations to convert again. It's great.
I would say for me, it's more around the people that have decided that we can do things better together. For the longest time, it was, no, we're going to keep this is what we do at different companies. And now people are realizing that if they work together to solve these problems, it's better for the industry, it's more sustainable for the industry. And I would say that as we inject more people into the workforce, at least in the interviews that I've been doing, this younger generation really cares about how your company operates. They want to make sure you're doing the right thing. And I think that has been a huge shift in probably at least what I've seen in the last couple of years.
It's a good point, and maybe to the pool experience that Ben has, and certainly Dan, in terms of when you operate a pool, you really have to pull stakeholders together. You have to look at the holistic supply chain and work in concert with your suppliers and your customers. And in many cases, if you are an independent pooler, you're almost the center of the wheel, and you've got different axles to these stakeholders here. That really is a breakthrough model in the sense that you can really then understand what the whole supply chain and all the stakeholders are going through, and perhaps look at solutions that's going to benefit all. You mentioned, Dan, earlier in terms of that collaboration that's taking place. Is that something as well that is so critical in advancing reuse?
Yeah, at least in what I'm seeing, I would say that you see more and more companies really, I'll use CHEP as an example just because it's what I know. CHEP, we have the iconic blue platforms. Everybody knows about them, but we get to see the entire supply chain, and we can pull things from different people that really, if somebody's doing it well over here, you share it over here, and it becomes a share reuse model of intellect and different things. Obviously, you keep confidentiality, but identifying those certain things that somebody's doing well and sharing it across the board is really kind of driving us forward. And people are willing to, you go into conferences. I've been to a couple sustainability conferences in the last couple of years, and you see two competitors that in no other capacity would ever be talking to each other, sitting at a table talking about the challenges that they're facing. And it's like the light bulb goes off, and it's like, okay, yeah, we've got to do this better together. And seeing it end to end of the entire supply chain really makes things make sense.
To me, the other piece is, we talked about Apple being at 22 cents, but the rise of information and the cheapness of information, and as you mentioned, part of it's orchestrating, getting answers to different problems, and now the information is more and more available, meaning that there's many different types of solutions that weren't possible before because they were under the waterline between linear and circular, but that are coming above the waterline and saying, yeah, we can make that delivery circular now because we know that where the pieces are. We have the chain of custody. So the huge change will be the cheapness of information and allowing us to take our reusable products forward.
From a data standpoint, we look at, you collect a lot of data points, and billions of pieces of data, and then you run the different algorithms against it, and you actually start to notice patterns that you've never seen before, and they come to light just like that. And now with AI, it's going to be much more workable, the data, and just give you, breakthroughs on efficiencies for cost savings and plant improvements, et cetera. One of the best memories I have is Tim and I went to, with a whole group of RPA guys, to Europe, to Norway, and it was a fantastic trip. But just understanding what they're doing, how they're doing, and they've been doing it for quite a bit longer than we have in the United States. So you're able to say, there's that missing piece, and go along those lines. And even at PlasGod, when we look at our product line, how do you make the most competitive products, performance-wise, weight-wise, and expense-wise? If you can put those variables together and put them into the marketplace, it makes a big difference.
One of the good memories of this leadership trip to Norway is that this was in 2019, so this was about 5 years ago. But they decided 10 years before that they were going to tag all of their pallets and their totes with RFID. And I think at the time they didn't really realize what they were going to do with it, but they went ahead and very forward thinking, preparing for their future. And sure enough, when we were there, the entire warehouse was automated based on the tags and the data that they could collect from the individual packaging products. And the robotics were used in terms of washing and drying and getting set up for use. And it was very impressive in terms of that forward thinking from Norway. And certainly we were all like, wow, I guess we've got some work to do in terms of applications into other markets like the United States.
Absolutely, and just the amount of data that they were collecting, and they were using an IBM platform with some other platforms, Qualcomm, et cetera, but they were actually plugged into GS1, Global Standard 1, to make everything usable. And they said the United States would be on GS1 soon. We're 6 years later, still not there, but.
It was also interesting that which we haven't got to yet, their ownership structure of that particular reusable company was in a big part the receivers of the goods.
That's right.
And so there was a lot. I mean, their level of loss was like minuscule because they were part owners, or the receivers were part owners in the enterprise, which makes you wonder whether the alignment could be continued to be optimized as we go forward.
Yeah. The group before was talking about pallets, and I was chuckling because they're telling me efficiencies, track, trace, this and that. Entire plastic pallet pool really falls out of favor if you start losing assets. So it all comes down to control. You must have control of the asset. If you can't have control, then it's like throwing out $70 bills, $80 bills of pallets.
No, we have no experience in that whatsoever.
The late Graham Connor used to say, he told me 20 years ago, he said, the pallet is the last free gift to mankind.
Is that right?
It's always stuck in the back of my head.
Well, earlier this year, the association developed a new strategic plan, a very forward document looking at 2030, and our vision of that leading businesses would move their goods in reusable packaging. And I think we're gaining on that. We certainly are not there, across all marketplace and applications. But when we look at this movement and the momentum, and certainly success stories that are being generated in many markets around the world, in developing that and having a vision to see through, do you think you guys will get there? Where leading companies around the world are recognizing reuse as the preferred way to distribute goods?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the trends towards sustainability is there. The RPA really helps that a lot with the focus on a couple key aspects: the advocacy and education. So I think the more people know how it works, with the emphasis on sustainability, and the more that we work together with the governments and we put in the incentives for some of these longer term investments to pay out, the more I think the world will continue towards reuse models.
Yeah, I also think there's a lot of passion out there for this topic, sustainability, reusability, et cetera. And you really do see that even at trade shows like this. I'd say 4, 5, 10 years ago, a lot of the titles that you'd see of people coming through were operations, plant, engineering, and today it's directors of sustainability and optimization. It's like those roles have really been elevated, and they take a real, they take their roles very, very seriously, and I think that's going to really lead to some great things in the coming years.
And from the word partnership, we're seeing a lot, at least at Plasgat, of people saying, hey, let's partner together. Let's understand how we can use our recycled product, ship it to you guys, put it into the next plastic pallet, next bin container, and reduce our cost by 30%. So it's a gift that keeps on giving. It's an asset, but by taking their recycling, instead of them paying somebody to come pick it up, you take it into your supply chain and you use that to ameliorate the cost of the next pallet coming out.
I completely agree with everything you guys said. One person's trash is somebody else's recyclability. And it really comes down to, just today, I've had more people come up to me and just talk to me. They see my badge and they're like, oh, hey. And these are industries that we've never been in before. And it's people that are really starting to look at how they do things differently. So where at one time single use was the way to go, not anymore. I think that trend is over, and this is the new trend moving forward.
Well, we're not going to look 25 years ahead to say double the age of the association, but I think we can look 5 years and see a tremendous amount of potential. Technology was brought up, automation and robotics, and shifting of labor in terms of the workforce and aging populations. And there's just a lot of dynamics that are changing that even in the next 5 years, this industry and the application of reuse is going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to look at different ways that's going to benefit the distribution of goods. Looking ahead, it's just say 5 years. What do you see as an exciting trend or something that's going to be a change agent for the industry of sitting here, say 5 years from now, and say, wow, this is now where we are today?
Well, I think the automated storage and retrieval systems, I think with inflation continuing to rise and the cost of people and repairs, I think more and more companies will be putting in automated systems, and that will drive that demand for a better quality product that's going through there, because the cheap and cheerful ones will jam up the very expensive systems. So it's going to be driven by these investments, and we're already starting to see it with the super big retailers, and more people are putting the systems in place, and that will just continue to say that's the table stakes, that's the level you need to be at to be able to participate in this business. So it's going to the single-use products won't be able to compete in that strict of an environment.
Anybody else have a forecast of the next 5 years?
I think the consumer is going to have a big part of what happens in our industry too, is they start to demand and start to, buy more and more from sustainable brands. That's where we come in. We make those brands more sustainable in their supply chain. And as consumers start to see more and more of this, I think there's just limitless opportunities.
Yeah. I think we touched on it a little earlier with the way we process data, whether it's through algorithms or AI, whatever the case may be. But by doing that, it gives you a better control feature because you have more understanding of where the product's going, how it's being used. And not only that, you understand the efficiencies, the pickup on the MHE equipment, reduction on damage, reduction on your OSHA recordables, reduction on your labor costs, reduction on your insurance costs, reductions always across the board, being able to put in new data, put in new material. So I think you start to get that visibility. And then there's a whole myriad of other items like carbon credits, things along those lines that you could start to pull back because you're taking CO2 emissions out of the environment. And that's what we really strive to do, because we can make a bigger difference than just about anybody else out there.
Yeah, you can quantify those areas that used to be unknowns or nobody believed you, and you're able to say, look, I can evidence it. I can say, here's where it is. Those are big factors that will drive the growth of our reusable industry.
I never thought I'd be spending so much time talking to data scientists who take this data and just boom, and I'm like, sure. And they try and whiteboard it for me. I'm like, yeah, I don't need to know that. Just tell me what it means, and we can go from there. And I think data is really going to be the future. whether it's digital, whether it's AI, anything. It's going to be about the data and where it can take us and how it's going to make us better.
Yeah, I agree. The technology is going to be continued to accelerate and be amazing. I cited a statement that Elon Musk made just about 2 weeks ago
Bringing
that
up Elon Musk.
by 2040 there'll be more robots than humans, is his projection. And even if he's close, it's pretty exciting. So Ben, we'll have a robot in your place in 5 years from now.
Oh, we have robots already. We
Yeah,
have robots, but actually ours are doing the automation, putting the crates and bins together. But I don't know if we'll have a robot walking around doing it.
Yeah, at least with you programming it,
Oh,
right?
I'm
It
not
might do some
programming
different
anything.
things. Well, fantastic. We really appreciate the chance to touch base on a few things that are memories with an association that's now 25 years old. And we're going to conclude, actually carry forward our celebration, conclude this session into a happy hour that we are staging right out front here. And we'll continue our celebration of our 25th anniversary for the RPA. And we owe it all to really all the leaders out here who are exhibiting or members of our organization, certainly the team here and the executive leadership that you're providing to the group. We wouldn't be here at 25 years without them. And we continue to strengthen the support that we have with our members to do more things like this in education and draw from the experiences that we have. So thank you so much for your time, and certainly everybody here. And let's go and enjoy a happy hour as we look to finish off a great day here at PAC Expo.